Hi folks, Excited here. Now, one of the things that marks my high-end knife series generally is that the knives are smart, well-dressed sort of knives, the sort of things that some might call a gentleman's knife. Even the sort of 4-inch bladed Shiragorovs wouldn't look out of place in a smart suited sort of hand. This, on the other hand, is an absolute beast. Now, I've only ever owned one Cold Steel myself, which was the Cold Steel Lucky 2, which is a twin-bladed penknife of the sort of traditional style, except it's made of carbon fibre and S30V steel, and has a horrible pocket clip on it. It's the only Cold Steel I've ever owned, and I don't have it anymore. I sold it on. But this here is on loan to me as part of my high-end knife series, and well, let's say it's interesting. To me, it's it's not my favourite knife I've ever had in this series. I can see where it works, but I find it ergonomically kind of challenging. Now, this is an Andrew Demko design. Now, Andrew Demko is an American sort of knife maker who apparently started making knives when he was at school in his machine shop class, what we would call metalwork. Here, he made a chisel and had to heat treat it. So that kind of got him the bug for building his own grinding machine and building his own forges to heat up metal. And, he did that from his teenage years onwards. But he had a bit of a good relationship with Cold Steel and Lynn Thompson, as it was. It was his company at the time. It's been recently sold to an investment company, so quite where it'll go and what will happen, I don't know. But he had a good relationship with Lynn Thompson, and what he's really known for is his locks. One thinks of liner locks or frame locks. Perhaps nowadays there's a lot of button locks, but that's kind of about it. Oh, axis locks, of course, from Benchmade originally, but you also have the old-fashioned, the back lock, as was on the Buck 110 and things like that. But Andrew Demko created a version of the back lock called the Triad lock, which adds in a stop pin so that when pressure is put on the blade, it doesn't transfer immediately through to the back spring, which can then fail. It's pressed onto the stop pin, so it acts a bit like a back lock, and to use it's practically impossible to tell the difference between it and a back lock unless you know what you're looking for. But if you look in the back, you'll find a stop pin, which you won't find in a traditional back lock. So that was his first one, and he made a number of knives with that, and there are a lot of fairly chunky Cold Steel knives that have got that lock. More recently, he's done a thing called the Shark lock, which is a very sort of fidget-friendly lock. It has a release on the back of the handle about here, and you pull it up and back, and you can flick the knife open and shut, a bit like an axis lock, only with an external lever here rather than an internal button here. In between times, he came out with this one. Now, I don't think there'd be many knives with this lock, which maybe tells you something about it. It's supposed to be the most undefeatable lock, the most solid lock there is. I can't see why that should be the case, but but apparently that's what everybody says. This is called the Scorpion lock, and this here is the lock bar. So we have a pin in the blade. Let's see if I can... Oh, this is the AD15, by the way. I should probably have said that at the beginning. Andrew Demko 15, but it's from Cold Steel. Now, let's see if I can do this on camera, because I actually find this knife very unergonomic. So I'll tell you what, put it on the other side. Well, it's the same on both sides, but it sits flatter on the desk if I do it this way. Now, so if we open the blade, we can see here that there is a pin at the top here. So as the blade comes round, that pin is going to drop in to here. Like that, and it drops in with a bit of a clunk, because this back lock, or this back part, is very solidly hinged at the bottom, and it snaps in place with some real kind of force, and it, you know, it's good and solid. This lock itself, lock bar itself, is a solid thing. I'm not sure whether it's absolutely an integral piece or whether it's joined. It looks like there's a seam in it there, but it's difficult to say without sort of taking the knife to bits. It does contain the stop pin, which is up here, and this is that lock pin. It is a thumb stud opening, and it is built like a blooming tank. I mean, this is absolutely solid. It's a chunk of a knife, and that lock is very strong. I find it very difficult both to open and perhaps more importantly to shut, because it takes quite a lot of strength to move that bar away from the back of the blade. I think most people can do it with just the strength of their thumb on there, but I just can't. I have to you know, put some real effort into this, and even then, you know, I find it really difficult. When this was left with me, I really struggled to get it to close, and I tried very hard, and I had to really think about it. I haven't given this much fiddling because it's just too much like hard work trying to get it open and closed. There's a lot going on here, though. So, well, I mean, it's an interesting knife. It's just, for me, I think that Scorpion lock is a bit too far. As I say, it's made by Cold Steel, or it's made under the Cold Steel name. It's actually made in Taiwan. And one of the things about knives made in Taiwan is that they do tend to be very well made. You know, that they don't tend to get cheap knives out of Taiwan. You do tend to get high quality ones. It's a mixture of materials. You know, from the inside we've got stainless steel liners. Then you've got sculpted G10 on most of the handle. And then you've got this back spacer, which I think must be titanium. It could be aluminium, but I think it's probably titanium. Just because it would need this, that's where all the strength needs to be. The blade itself is S35VN, not the latest greatest of steels, but certainly very, very competent steel. It was originally developed in conjunction with Chris Reeve for the Chris Reeve knives, as a development of S30V. I like both. I probably have more knives that I like better in S30V, but that doesn't mean that they're actually better knives. It just there are other things, obviously, that come into play. And yeah, the design of the knife and the design of the lock is obviously going to be a big part of that. You've got this really chunky jimping on the back, which I suppose if you're using a hard use knife like this, you may have gloves on. You've got a big swedge on the back, but it doesn't come to a very fine edge on the back. It's still quite broad, and because of the design of the swedge, it thickens out again just before the point. So we've got quite a robust point here. So I suppose if you're looking for a really robust knife, if you're looking for a military sort of knife, this would be a good alternative to, say, the Adamis from Benchmade, which we saw on this series, and I think it was in the last batch. The only thing I have that kind of compares with it is the Medford on belay, which is a bigger knife overall, but similar in style and intention. These are both big solid knives. I prefer my on belay just because I'm never a fan of G10 and I don't like this lock, but I do quite like the blade on that. But then I really like the on belay. It's a knife I've had for quite a long time, and I have used and abused it quite seriously, and yet it stands up really well. It's in a good old D2, and although it has this bronze anodized finish, and you can see it's quite sort of scratched up, that's because I've used it a lot. In terms of, if I was going to sell this knife, its value probably is relatively low because of the amount of use it's had. But to me, it's already earned its keep. It's earned its purchase price because we've been able to use it. The other thing is sort of more comparable in these is the thickness. Again, it's not as thick as the on belay, but they're both good, thick, solid knives with good, thick, solid handles. You've a steel clip on this, which I notice is sprung a little bit, so I don't know what sort of use it's had from its owner, but that has sprung a little bit. Being steel, of course, it's easy enough to straighten it out. You just have to unscrew it and bend it back. There's also a lanyard loop on there, as is on the belay. So, what more is to say about this knife? It's a good solid knife, and if you can get to grips with that scorpion lock, then it's probably a good knife. If you want a solid, robust knife, particularly if you can't afford an on belay. The on belay's 3 times the price, I think. So yeah, but this is a good Andrew Demko tough knife with a tough lock. Generally a robust construction. I never really liked G10. It seems to me it's just plastic. Now I know it's got a lot of properties which make it very useful, and one of them being that you can mill it. But if you are looking for a rough, tough knife, perhaps as a military knife or something like that, this might be right up your alley. Anyway, I think that's enough said about this. If you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of these knives, then please subscribe and remember to ring the bell if you want notifications, because otherwise you won't get them. And it would be nice to see you again. It would be nice to have a few more subscribers. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.